think I'm in love. Oh, I think I'm in love. Yeah, in love with trouble, 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 trouble. I think I'm in love with trouble. And I know everything I touch burns right down to dust. 'Cause I'm reckless, yeah, I'm reckless. And I always seem to fall on the wrong side of the law. 'Cause I'm reckless, yeah, I'm reckless. I keep my hand right on the flame, and I try but I can't change my reckless ways. I know everything I touch burns right down to dust. 'Cause I'm reckless, yeah, I'm reckless. And I always seem to fall on the wrong side of the law. 'Cause I'm reckless, and I can't help my reckless ways, my reckless ways, my reckless ways, my reckless ways.
Let me say a little thing, tell you about a dream. All our friends, you and me, we were dancing in the streets. We were wild, we were free, we were making memories. I'm gonna shout, I'm gonna sing, yeah. Give you something to believe in. 1, 2, 3, let's go, let's go. 1, 2, 3, let's go. Let me show you, show you. You know that I got that soul, yeah. Show you, show you. You know that I got that soul, yeah. I can go high as I wanna, watching me fly 'cause I'm gonna show you, show you, show you that I got that soul. Oh, 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 oh. Yeah, I got that soul.
I believe in miracle power. I believe in miracle power. I believe in miracle power.
For the broken and afraid, this is for those who are hurting. You've been hoping some help is on the way. Lord, if you know, sing with me. In this battle of addiction, when fear is chasing after me. Whatever trouble I'm facing, I will lift my hands and sing it out.
I believe in miracle power, in a wonder-working God. I'm filled with the Holy Spirit, He's working wonders in our hearts. I belong to a loving Father. I'm a friend of Christ's Son. When it feels like I won't make it, I call on Jesus.
morning. If this is your first time, we are so honored that you would spend just a little bit of time with us on this holiday weekend. If you dropped off your kids, I want you to know that they are in good hands. They are safe. They are having fun back there. And if you have a middle schooler, you can probably hear the music back there is so loud, and they love it. So they're having a great time back there as well. Speaking of loud music, we do have some earplugs right back there on the back table because around here we do like our music loud. I hope that you had a chance to grab some coffee on your way in, and if you need the mother's room, you can go through the women's restroom or right through those back doors. You guys can stay seated. I'm gonna throw it back to the band.
Ramblers in the wilderness, yeah, we can't find what we need. We get a little restless from the search and get a little worn down in between. Like a bull chasing a matador, is a man led to his own schemes. Everybody needs someone beside him, shining like a lighthouse from the sea. Yeah. Brother, let me be your shelter. Never leave you alone. I can be the one you call when you're alone. Brother, let me be your fortress. The night when you're driving on. I'll be the one to light the way. Bring you home. Face down in the desert now. It's a cage locked around my heart. I found a way to drop the keys when the failures were. Now my hands can't reach that far. Oh, I ain't made for robbery. I can never take the world alone. I know that in my weakness I am strong, but it's your love that brings me home. Brother, let me be your shelter. Never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're alone. Brother, let me be your fortress. The night when you're driving on. Be the one to light the way. Bring you home. And when you call and need me, say where'd you go? Brother, I'm right here. And all those days when the sky begins to fall, you're the blood of my blood. We can get through it all. Brother, let me be your shelter. Never leave you all alone. I could be the one you call when you're feeling low. Brother, let me be your fortress. The night winds are driving on. Yeah. Be the one to light the way. Bring you home. Brother, let me be your shelter. Never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're low. Brother, let me be your fortress. The night winds are driving on. Be the one to light the way. Bring you home. Be the one to light the way. Bring you home. Y'all gonna stand at y'all's feet and sing with us? That Bible by the bed ain't a coaster no more. It still got some rings from the bottles before. Well, that red letter mercy put an end to my thirsty. Well, that Bible by the bed ain't
ain't a coaster no more. I told my old man that I loved him today. Well, he said it back before he drove away. I've been stubborn like my father. While we were oil and water. But I told my old man that I loved him today. I guess that's what happens when he chases you down. Everything's different, there's a new me in town. I don't wake up angry at the mirror on the wall. If you miss the old me, well, that's Jesus' fault. The Sundays don't make me feel sad like they did. She don't have to drag me like she does our kids. Well, I still got some questions, but I'm counting my blessings. Yeah. Well, Sundays don't make me feel sad like they did. Sing it now. Well, I guess that's what happens when he chases you down. Everything's different, there's a new me in town. I don't wake up angry at the mirror on the wall. If you miss the old me, well, that's... Play that guitar now. I guess that's what happens when he chases you down. Everything's different, there's a new me in town. I don't wake up angry at the mirror on the wall. Well, if you miss the old me, that's Jesus' fault. If you miss the old me, well, that's Jesus' fault. Oh, that's Jesus' fault. That's all Jesus' fault. And what kind of father would run to me? After all that I've done, you're still here with me. Come on, we sing now. What kind of father would take me as I am? You don't care when I've been what my Father's like. You run with abandon again and again, with grace like an ocean, it never ends. Always good and always kind. This is what my Father's like. Hey, thank y'all for being here and singing with us today. I don't know about you, I was super excited about college football yesterday, so much that I blew out my voice singing, yelling at the TV. So, hey, y'all, welcome to have a seat and watch the screens.
When the sea covers me, pull me out. When I'm up in the clouds, catch me on my way back down. Family, this is my family. This is my family. This is my family.
Well, hey, good morning. How are you? It is great to see you. Happy Labor Day, and I'm glad that you're joining us here in the room. For those of you watching online, I know you're out there. I checked just a few moments ago, so hello. Glad you're there. And then, of course, our friends in Liberty Hill, I'm so glad that you're along with us today as well. What a great day to be together. I hope you get to relax a little bit this weekend and enjoy, but I'm glad you're here and you have made your church family a part of your weekend. And so it's just great to see you. Hey, one quick thing before we get into today's message is one of the things that's coming this fall is what we call a fall series. And you know why? Because it's a series of messages that happen in the fall. And so it's very creative, right? Spent a lot of time figuring that out. And it's a fall series, but what's so important about a fall series is it is a fall spiritual growth series. It's something for us to really emphasize our growth spiritually this fall. And so one of the things that's so important about that is making sure that every person has the opportunity to be in a circle that we call a small group. It's so important because so much of our growth happens when we're with other people and we're able to express things about what's going on with us or how we see the message or those verses or what God is doing in us. And look, we say this here all the time. Rows are great. What we're sitting in now, if you're in one of our campuses, rows are great. That's wonderful, but circles are better. Circles are better than rows, and the reason is because spiritual growth happens in a different way, a deeper way, and actually expedites in a circle as opposed to a row. So rows have their place, they're important, but circles is where the difference is really fleshed out in our lives. And so the reason I bring that up is we want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to be in one of those circles. And one of the big pieces of that is making sure that we have people who will say, you know what, I don't serve anywhere in the church, or maybe I serve here, but I could also do this, is we are always looking for very great people who are willing to lead a small circle of people through some discussion questions and be in their life and maybe open your home or schedule places to be. And we are always looking for great people who are willing to step up into a position that helps other people. And the fact is, that's what we're about, is helping others. And so look, that may be you, maybe it's something you've thought about, maybe you've been in a group for a while and you're like, you know, I think I could do this. If God is talking inside of your heart about doing something with that, then you should have already done it. If God has not been talking inside of your heart, now I'm talking, right? And so I'm telling you that is one of the most vital pieces. Starting next weekend in our lobbies, you can already see it out there now, but starting next weekend, we're going to start talking to everyone about being in a group. Today, I want to just tell you that if you're one of those people who've either been in a group or you know that you could take a group of people and and with some coaching, and we'll give you a coach, and with some training, and we'll give you the training, and somebody to call when you have questions, and we'll give you that. You go, I could do that. I could help some other people grow spiritually. I'll tell you, being on that side of it is so incredibly rewarding, and I want to challenge you that if you have any thought of maybe doing that, step out into our lobbies today, go right to that groups area. You can't miss them. They're in the blue shirts, and go talk to them about what that actually looks like. Even if you have an idea that I might be interested, I just want more information, go talk to them. Step across out the doors and walk right to the people in the blue shirts, and they will help take you from there. We'll give you everything you need to be a success in this, and then starting next week, we'll start helping you fill that group up. And so we're so excited about where the fall is going, and we need a few of you who will go there with us in a different level. And so I hope you'll consider that and take this as a challenge today. Again, if God's already been saying something to you about it, go for it. If not, then now Shane's challenging you, okay? And I hope you'll consider that and not just set in comfort, but actually help some people through the fall and take that commitment for that fall series. Well, I'm glad that you're here today. For those of you who are maybe here for the very first time, we are in a few weeks into this series that we're calling Family, and you can probably guess again how creative we are, that's just what we're talking about. The series is called Family. We're talking about family. And so today I want to jump in because today we are talking about conflict in family. In fact, it's probably, we all have families, but we don't have much common when it comes to family. In fact, this is probably all we have in common when it comes to family is that all families have conflict. And we fuss and we all fight, we all do this. And what we've all learned is that it doesn't take long to figure this out, is that when you win an argument in your family, you don't really win anything. Do you? I mean, if you win an argument at work, somebody comes by and high five, you got it, man, we're going your direction, great. You win an argument in the courtroom or maybe the boardroom, there's a reward to that. Maybe you got some additional pay or you got some pay out. But if you win an argument in the living room or the bedroom, there is really no win, is there? I mean, you feel good that you out-argued the other person, but there is no win. And so the conflict is never really resolved. Conflict in family is like conflict nowhere else. And part of what makes this so complicated is that we don't all process conflict in the same way in our families. Here's what I mean. There are a lot of different ways to process conflict. Because some of you are what we'll just call peacemakers. I'm just going to walk and move that for y'all. I'm sure that's going to drive you crazy because it will me, all right? All right, it's peacemakers because you're just a peacemaker, right? Peacemakers won't even argue, right? They're just like, oh, whatever. It's like is everybody fine, right? And if you've ever tried to resolve a conflict with a peacemaker, it is complicated because you can't even get them to push back or to argue. It's like, if you're fine, they're fine. And you know they're not telling the truth, but they're peacemakers. And then there's this one right here in the family, which is the sulker, right? Right? Some of you are sulkers in the family, and I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands on there. You're just down, right? That's it. You're just down. Even after the conflict gets resolved, it's like, are you okay? I'm fine. Well, you don't seem fine because you're kind of sulking around. Right? And then there's this one. This is the stuffer, right? The stuffer. I mean, you know the person is like, is everything okay? Yes, it's fine. Are you sure everything okay? Fine, I'm fine. It's like, okay, well, you don't seem fine. Is everything? I'm fine, right? All right, you got it. It's like they've stuffed it down and then it just blows up on everybody, right? And then there's this one in the family, the litigator, right? I mean, you are just the best arguers. You always win. You are never wrong. In fact, if I were to say to you, well, you're just never wrong, are you? You would, as humbly as you could, say, it's not that I can't admit that I'm wrong. It's just it doesn't happen, right? And it's because you're a good arguer. And in the people in your family, they don't want to argue with you because they know you're going to win the argument. And winning the argument works at work, and it works on the basketball court. It works with the youth league umpire. But winning at home even after you've won and litigated and you had a chart and you had your statistics and everybody knows you're right and they're wrong, and when the whole thing is over, somehow it's just not over. Because that's family. And then, of course, maybe this one is in the family, the screamer, right? There are just some people who just have to yell. You know what's interesting about this is that if you came out of a family where everybody just yelled, chances are you married one of the other types of people who didn't. And do you remember the very first argument you had? I mean, you came out of a family where it was like, let's just get it all out on the table, and people are screaming and throwing arms and all this stuff. And so you yelled in this first argument, and your new spouse looked at you like, demon, come out in the name of Jesus, right? It's like, what was that? Because they didn't come from that. And you just crushed them, and they wouldn't yell back, and so neither one of you won. And it's complicated, but as long as there's family, there's going to be conflict. Now, here's what's interesting about today's message. There are many, many approaches to conflict. But we're going to discover today that there is really only one source of conflict in the family. Just one. Lots of approaches, lots of responses of what to do with it, but there's really only one source of conflict in my family and in your family. And if we can acknowledge it, and if we can own it, then you're going to be able to make progress with that conflict in your family, especially if everyone in your family, which is pretty ideal, and remember we've been talking in this series about here's what's ideal and here's what's real, but if everybody could aim at this ideal and everybody could kind of wrap their brains around this one single idea, I guarantee you the tension, the tone, and the conflict level and the emotional level in your family will decrease almost instantaneously. That's how powerful this principle is. And so to help us with this principle, let's call on Jesus' brother named James. Because James wrote to Christians 2,000 years ago, introducing us to one of the most profound relational insights ever. And he did it in a question that introduces this powerful, powerful principle. And here was his question. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Now, if I were brave today, and I'm not, I would say, why don't you turn to the person that you came to church with today or that you're sitting by, and for the next 30 seconds, discuss what is it that causes fights and quarrels among us. And you know what? The problem is fights and quarrels would break out here among us if we did that. And the reason is because if you were to turn to your person or your son or your middle school daughter and your mother-in-law and say, hey, what causes fights and quarrels among us? Before it was over, you would be pointing at each other saying, you cause fights and quarrels among us, right? And immediately we go to blame. You say, well, it's because my spouse won't do this, and they spend all the money, or they're insensitive, or they just pout around all the time, or my kids, they just won't behave, and my parents, oh my gosh, they just don't understand anything, and my daughter, she won't clean up her room, and my kids keep wearing each other's clothes and leaving them on the floor, and it would just go on and on and on and on. And our fingers would be shaking, and if everybody would do what I tell them to do, we would have peace in our family. Because at the end of the day, I know what everybody should do. And if they would just do it, we would have peace in our home. And we would immediately, what we do, go to blame. Let me tell you something that some of you have already tripped over, but you need to know. That as long as you blame others for your unhappiness, you will always be unhappy. Every single time that you blame someone, oh, it's them, right? Oh, it was you, right? Oh, no, right there, that was you. Dude, I almost got you. And I can see you back there, right? It's you, right? Every single time. It was her. It was her. What you do is you take your happiness, when you blame, you take your happiness and you literally give it to the person that you're in conflict with. I can't really stand you right now. There's my happiness. I can't believe you did that. Oh, you suck. So I'm just going to give you my potential for happiness. And you just give it back to me whenever you think you're ready, but I can't be happy. I knew you were going to throw it. That's why my hand, did you see my hand go up like that? I knew it. So come on, just let's bring it on, big boy. Let's go. Because I can't be happy until Jack Daddy gives it back to me. Right? I'm not going to be happy unless you allow me to be happy. So when I start blaming, I am literally giving away my happiness. Now, if I were to ask you how many, you're going to need that stress ball all week, right? Now, if I were to ask you how many of you would like to give your control the control of your happiness in your life over to someone else that you're in conflict with, none of us would do that. But as long as we are caught in the death cycle of if you would, I would, and if you would stop or start, I would, you are literally tossing your happiness to the person you're in conflict with. You're saying, I can't be happy until you do what you're supposed to be doing and do something differently. And come on, nobody would do that on purpose. But until you understand that's what blaming other people is and you get that principle, you almost have no option and you just keep handing off your happiness. Because if other people won't behave and won't do what you think they should do, you can't be happy. And that's a little bit true at work. That's a little bit true on the ball field, but it is a lot true in the family. In fact, for those of you who would say right now, I'm unhappy, chances are it's because of something going on at home. If somebody would just act differently, you would feel like, hey, I would get my happiness back. And so James just goes ahead and answers his question of what starts these fights among us. You know, he says, what is it that causes these fights and quarrels among you? And he answers the question. It's this. It's blame. Blaming never works because every time I blame, I'm just giving my happiness away. And I don't want to do that, and I know you don't want to do that. Learning how not to do that is what James explains to us in the following verses. So from James chapter 4, here's what he says. He says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? And we think, well, lots of things. James says, no, it's not lots of things. It's not lots of things. It's kind of one thing. That's why you can't ever resolve your conflict, is because you don't understand the source of your fights. And then he dives in and he tells us, he says, don't quarrels and fights come from your desires that battle within you? He says they come from something inside of you. And I want to say, no, they don't. It's because of what they did that we're having a fight. And James says, nope. You have a desire, and every single conflict you have, specifically in your family, there is a desire in you that is spilling out on the people around you. There is a conflict in you that is creating a conflict with the people around you, and it always begins with something in you. Now, if we just stopped right there and thought through our most recent conflicts and had the courage to kind of own this idea, it would immediately take the temperature down in our conflict. Because James is telling us this, there is something you want that you don't have. There's something you're trying to get and it's not happening. And so he goes on in verse 2. And here's what he says. He says, you desire, but you do not have. And every time there's a conflict with anybody in your family, even if it's the same thing over and over and over again, you want something. And then he says this, you desire, but you do not have. And he says, so you kill. And you're like, come on, James. Well, I mean, it's not like we're a bunch of murderers you're talking to. We're Christians. We're not on death row. What are you talking about? He's exaggerating, but think about what happens in families with this. He's saying sometimes there are things that we want so badly that we are willing to hurt the people we care about the most in order to get what we want. See, some of us have seen or maybe been a parent, but we've certainly seen a parent who has killed a relationship with their kids because their kids wouldn't do what they wanted them to do. In fact, that may be true for you. Some of you, you left home at 18 or 17 or earlier. You got out of there. And the reason is you couldn't stand to be around your parents. And the bottom line behind all the agony and tears and yelling and screaming is they wanted you to be something or behave a certain way or do something, and you just wouldn't do it. And there was something you wanted your parents to do or to stop doing, and they just wouldn't do it. From both sides, it killed the relationship. And we've all seen someone power up and destroy someone's self-esteem. People criticize people till they have no confidence and shame their children till they're almost afraid to be around their mom and dad. Women who have such high expectations of their daughters and dads who have such high expectations of their sons, and their words just destroy what's going on in the hearts of their kids. And when you want something from someone, if you want it badly enough in your desire to get what you want out of them, you have the potential, we have the potential to destroy them. You've seen it. And unfortunately, in some cases, we've been a part of doing that very thing. And here's how we defend it. And you know this is true because it's true for me too, and there's not much different with us parents about this, or us spouses about this, or these friends or uncles about this. Here's how we defend all that. But I just want the best for them. I just want them to reach their full potential. And what do? We lie to ourselves because it's not really about them, it's about us getting something we want. Listen, do you know why we hurt people closest to us the most? It's because they're close to us. Do you know why the people that are closest to you, the ones that like you risk your life to get here into this world, do you know why some of your biggest conflicts is with those people? It's because they're close to you and you want something from them. And if you want it badly enough, we have the potential to actually destroy them trying to get it. And the whole time we are arguing and fussing and nagging and belittling, we're telling ourselves, it's them, it's them. And James, the brother of Jesus, is going, no, it's you. You want something and you're not getting it from your kid. You're not getting it from your spouse. You're not getting it from your family. And you're going to use your words and your actions to get it one way or the other. Can you imagine what would happen in our homes if we just owned that one idea? So James goes on and he says this, he says, you covet, but you cannot get what you want. And so here we are. You quarrel and you fight, and we're right back where we began. And so James, why don't we get along in our family? Well, it's because each of you wants something from the other and you can't seem to get it. And look, this is huge because I'm telling you, in the middle of a conflict, so difficult to do, but it's huge. If in the middle of a conflict, somehow you could bring it up inside of you to pause and breathe and recognize that part of what's going on in this conflict right now, part of what I'm feeling, this anger that I'm feeling in this conflict right now, is I'm not getting what I want. If somehow we could bring that up in the middle of the conflict, that is a game changer. If in the middle of an argument, you could look at your dad, or you could look at your daughter, or you could look at your spouse and say, part of the problem is, I just want to tell you, I'm just going to own this. Part of the problem is I'm not getting what I want. In fact, I think we need to practice saying that more. Okay, look, let me just be honest. I'm not getting what I want. So let's everybody get our finger ready. Everybody get your finger. Make sure it's this one because we're in church, right? All right? Get this one ready. In fact, I want you to get your finger up, and we're going to do a little shaking with that finger right there because we're already pretty good at it, right? And what we're going to say, what we're actually just going to say is, I'm not getting what I want, right? So let's say that together, right? All of us together with the fingers, put a little attitude into it, right? Because that's what we do, right? So the problem in this argument right now, I just got to tell you, is what? I'm not. Man, that was good, almost scary good, right? Now, here's what some of you are thinking. Man, I wish my spouse was here to hear this. Man, I'm sending this to my kids on YouTube. If my mom or dad could just hear, and see, here we go again. And isn't that the issue? It's them. They need to hear this sermon. Hey, look, sit down and listen to the sermon right now. Don't do anything else, right? And James is going, really? I mean, like really? Can you imagine what would happen in our homes if this became the habit? Now, let me tell you why we don't do this, most of us. In fact, if I were to draw a circle here, right? And I said, sorry, and let's just pretend this circle kind of represents that relationship for you, whether it's a marriage, a brother, a sister, an in-law, whatever, right? All of it. This is kind of the entirety of the conflict right there. Now, if we were to draw this circle, and let's just say there's just this sliver, and in this case, it's 2%. That 98%, let's just say that that's the whole problem, and 98% is their fault. And here's the problem. It's only 2% you. Just 2%. I mean, you're almost perfect in this scenario. And you know it's 98% their fault. Let me just tell you, not one single time has anyone ever just said, yeah, let me pull my 2% out here. And let me tell you why we don't do that. It's the same reason you wouldn't do it either, and the same reason that we're going to have a hard time with this principle that James is giving us. Do you know why we don't just grab that little 2% and pull it out? Let me tell you why. I made it into a rhyme so it's easy to remember. Here's why we don't do this. Is because if you own a slice, you have to be nice. That's why we don't say a part of it's my fault, is because if I own a slice, I have to be nice, right? As soon as you own even a part of the problem, here's what happens. All of a sudden, your energy and your litigation and your arguing, the moment you own any percentage of it, the tension decreases. And I'm telling you, when you do, you lose part of your argument. You lose part of your leverage and your ability to convince the other person. But come on, you're not going to win an argument at home anyway, are you? Because there is no win to winning an argument at home. In fact, the best defense when it comes to family is no defense. When something comes up and it's these kids and it's like, you know what, honey, yeah, it's these kids, it's my fault. I'm the one that talked you into having kids, and if we had never had kids, this wouldn't be happening, so I'm so sorry. When your kids are going crazy and they think you're the dumbest thing ever and they just can't believe you are who you are, it's like, kids, look, I'm so sorry. This is totally my fault. If I would have never asked your mom out, none of this would have been happening. My bad, right? You see what I'm saying? You just absorb it. Listen, the best defense is no defense. And the reason we have a hard time stopping in the middle of an argument to own our part is because we lose some of our leverage. And James is like, yes, if everybody in the family would just own their part, everybody in the family would lose a little bit of their leverage. And guess what? You won't fight and quarrel so much. But as soon as I take a slice of the circle, then I have to focus on my slice. And I would rather just blame you and give you my happiness. Because you never, and you always, and you should, and you promised, and you, and I just feel so empowered when it's you. But the minute it's me, even if it's just a little slice me, I'm not quite so empowered. And James says, yeah, that's my point. And do you know what part of the problem is here? I'm just not getting what I want. Now I know, hey Shane, I object, objection, I object, I know. But let me just go ahead and say it for you, right? I'll just say it for you. It's like, Shane, you don't know. He promised. Shane, you don't know. They promised. And I wasn't asking for anything unusual. In fact, they said, death do us part. Or my kids, they promised. Or they said, if we pay for this, you'll do this. And they promised. Okay, it's the same thing. I want you to keep your promise. I want you to keep your marriage vow. I want you to do what you said you're going to do, and I'm not getting what I want. Shane, that's not fair. I want to tell you, be very careful with fair. We typically only throw down the fair card when it benefits us. I mean, let's be honest. Let's just be honest. You have never sat in the parking lot of the grocery store pounding on your steering wheel when you just pulled into a parking spot because you beat the guy who had been circling for 10 minutes looking for it, and you pounding on your steering wheel just going, oh, that's so unfair that I took this spot. It's so unfair. He's been out here for 10 minutes in the hot, and I just pulled in and saw a spot. None of us have ever sat there pounding on our steering wheel just going, it's so unfair that I got this. No, you know what we do? We go, thank you, Jesus. You love me more than that jackwagon, right? You think it's God's will when it works out for you. So fair, kind of hard to go there. And look, I'm not trying to be insensitive, but even in the most difficult circumstances, regardless of what they promised or how many times they said they would quit, how many times they said they would be on time, part of the problem is I want something from them and I'm not getting what I want. Part of the problem is that. And it's powerful because suddenly you're looking in the mirror rather than looking at the other person and blaming as you give them your happiness. And James says, I hope you get that, but it doesn't end there. And here's what he says next. Quarrels and fights happen because you don't ask God. This is so powerful. So look, if you're a church person, a God person, a Jesus follower, you pay attention. If you're not, look, everything we've said so far, you can go home and do it and it will absolutely work and you can take credit for it and just say, I've been thinking, and just do that. You don't even have to bring the Bible part into it if you don't want to. But if you're a follower of Jesus from this point on, we're talking to you. The rest of you can just sit and listen to what us crazy Christians have to do. James says this, the reason you don't have is because you don't ask God. And this is huge. In other words, instead of stopping in the middle of an argument and going, hey, you know what part of the problem is? Part of the problem in this conflict is I'm not getting what I want. I mean, come on, did it ever occur to you that before you go storming down the hall, or before you fire off that text with an angry face on it, hope you enjoy your morning when you get this on your way out the door when they're still asleep. Before you go tearing into your kid's room and throw off the covers and what in the ever-loving heck, before you start the argument, that's a justified argument. I told you 10 times and then you promised. I mean, you're so justified in what you're about to say. But before you do any of that, James says, has it ever occurred to you as a Jesus follower to actually get on your knees and say, God, I want my spouse to make more money. God, I want my teenage son to have better friends. God, I want my daughter to break up with that idiot. God, I know you created him, but I think you were absent on the day that processed, and you just, I know. James says, has it occurred to you that before raging in to get on your knees and actually pour your heart out to God? And say, God, there's something I want from my spouse. There's something I want from my daughter, from my son. There's something I want from my dad or my mom, and I'm not getting it. And he says, has that even ever occurred to you as a Jesus follower that you have access to that? To which we all say, well, no, because actually I'm just really mad at that point. And usually when I pray, I kind of pray at God about this. God, I'm going in this room. You better change this, kid. And James is saying, has it ever occurred to you that what you want you aren't getting is because you might be trying to squeeze something out of somebody that doesn't have it in them to give to you potentially? You have not because you haven't asked God. Now I'm telling you, look, this is so powerful. When you begin to bring these things to God, that little piece of the pie that you think is so tiny and so little that's your fault, all of a sudden there is so much focus for you to focus on that there is far less for you to focus on them. And the conversation begins to change. because you already are acknowledging that part of the problem is I'm not getting what I want, and possibly they don't even have it to give, and I've been trying to get it out of them. How foolish. He says, has it occurred to you to just ask God? And then he goes on. And this is the part that we hate. He says this, when you ask, you do not receive, because you ask with the wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. He says, Jesus followers, if you'll take a deep breath and really let God deal with you at the level of what it is that you want from them, what are you expecting? What do you think will make you happy? Are you trying to get your happiness out of their behavior? Once you wrestle with it, perhaps begin the conversation at a different place, refusing to hand them the responsibility and the pressure to make you happy. Now here's the question. Here's where we're going to end with. You ready? Who is it in your family that is suffering because you aren't getting your way? I mean, who in your family feels the pressure to have to change, the pressure to have to start or to stop, or the pressure to work harder or get skinnier or do more of this or earn more? Who is feeling that pressure because somehow you've communicated, if you do, I'll be happier? It is really about me, and I say it's about you. Because I just want you to live a long and productive life and reach your potential. I mean, who is suffering because you aren't getting your way? And what would happen with your son or your daughter? Because come on, there are some 21, 22, 25-year-old, 30-year-old kids of ours that are still trying to make us happy. And they're still living with those expectations that we laid on them before they left home. And every time they're with us, they're thinking, oh, I'm not living up to it. I'm not measuring up to it. And that's a you issue, not a them issue. I mean, who out there is suffering because you refuse to own the fact that this has more to do with you than it does with them? And what could you do today, either with a phone call or a text or a lunch or an appointment, to begin to make that unnecessary, to take that unnecessary and inappropriate pressure off of them? Do you know why you fight and you quarrel in your family? It's because there's something you want and you're not getting it. And do you know why they quarrel and fight back with you? It's because there's something they want and they're not getting it. Look, in the ideal family, there is a pause before the storm. There's a pause before the conversation where we say, God, before I launch into this, do in me what you need to do in me before I try to squeeze out of the people I love something that you could only give me to begin with. And maybe for some of us today begins a brand new habit where we admit that part of the problem is I'm not getting what I want. Let me pray for us today. Father, thank you for the challenge of your brother James to us. The challenge to reverse something and begin to look at our heart and our life and our wants as opposed to always thinking it's them. And as hard as these words are, you told us if we would ask, you're there. So would you help us as your followers to make that our first line of defense, not our last resort? That we come to you, telling you what we want, to allow you to do something in us that changes the dynamic of our family. And Father, what I love so much is that you did set up the ideal. And all of us are living in what's real in our life. But you don't condemn us for where we're living. You challenge us. You challenge us to never take our eyes off of the possibility of our family moving toward that ideal. And so, Father, thank you for the hope that there is in the broken relationships in our lives right now. That there is hope that something could change. And it's because of this principle you gave us to come to you and look deep inside of us and to be willing to say, there is something I want. And the big part of the problem is I'm not getting it. Help us to live that out in whatever way is needed this week. In Jesus' name, amen.
How can I help is a question that we ask around here all the time. And one of the ways that we want to know how we can help you is through this connection card. So you have a connection card in your seat. Maybe you need help, maybe you need prayer, maybe you have a question. Whatever it is, you can use the connection card or you can use the QR code. If you do fill out the connection card, you can drop it in the offering boxes in the back. And speaking of offering boxes, we could not do what we do around here without your generosity. So we never want to miss an opportunity to say thank you. Our mission is to help people heal from life's hurts, and that is how it happens. You can give online at rockpointechurch.com, or you can drop it in the box in the back. We have some really exciting things going on for families. In October, we are hosting what we're calling Try It Camp, and it is for our elementary age kids, and we want them to be able to experience all the things that make them unique and different, because that's how God created them. So we're going to give them an opportunity to try art, music, science, technology, all the things, so that way they can see what it is that God gave them, what interest it is that God gave them. So we are excited about that. If you are a part of the RockPointe family, we would love for you to share that with someone you know that it might be a good thing for them and their kids. We have baby dedication coming up on September 17th, and this is where you have the chance to say that you are going to partner with RockPointe to seek the wisdom and the guidance that we only get from God. If you have a baby or a child that you would like to dedicate, you can sign up online at rockpointechurch.com right there on the homepage. We are so thankful that you chose to spend just a little bit of time with us this morning. You guys have a great holiday weekend, and we'll see you back next week. Bye-bye.
It's 3.2 from the driveway of my house to your apartment where I am waiting now. Come on, don't think night's young. Let's go. NYC, Portland, Austin, Anaheim. Maybe not Anaheim. Keep an open mind. I'm just saying, baby, let's go. I don't care. Anywhere. Like a river connects to the ocean, this pavement touches wherever we're going. White lines flying by, who knows what we'll find. You and me tonight. Drive. Let's drive. When's the last time we dropped our things and went? Woke up somewhere that we've both never been. Growing up doesn't mean getting older. Maybe it's just left turns off familiar streets. I just wanna come back with a memory. Growing up doesn't mean getting older. I don't care. Anywhere. Like a river connects to the ocean, this pavement touches wherever we're going. White lines flying by, who knows what we'll find. You and me tonight. Let's drive. Let's drive. Remember when we were young.
summertime. Bring on the summertime. I will scream from the highest mountain. I will love like there's nothing in my way. I believe in the heart inside me. I believe in the hope that conquers hate. Don't worry about the clouds, 'cause when the skies come out, give me that sunshine, sunshine. Give me them good times, good times. Nothing but good vibes, good vibes. Give me that sunshine, sunshine. Bring on the summertime. Bring on the summertime. Bring on the summertime. Don't worry about the clouds, 'cause when the skies come out, give me that sunshine, sunshine. Give me them good times, good times. Nothing but good vibes, good vibes. Give me that sunshine, sunshine. Bring on the summertime. Bring on the summertime. Bring on the summertime. Bring on the summertime.
I miss when I had superpowers. Worry in the world, staring at stars out on my trampoline. I miss when Andy MacArthur was the fastest kid there ever was, and kid there was ever gonna be. Ken Griffey Jr. was a giant before parents got divorced, and I learned that there was gravity. I miss my old heroes. I had to give them all away. I miss my old heroes. Yeah, yeah. God, I wish they could have stayed. 'Cause it turns out that the hardest part growing up's not getting old. Just learn how the real world goes. I miss my old. I miss my old. I miss my Bible study leader. Had all the answers for living in the big bad world. Don't know if he still talks to Jesus, but his wife's remarried now, and I think he sells garage doors. I miss when I thought chasing dreams was holy magic behind curtains in a sacred place, or it was managers and lawyers who colored up and cashed them out, vacation homes and coastal states. I miss my old heroes. I had to give them all away. I miss my old heroes. Yeah, yeah. God, I wish they could have stayed. 'Cause it turns out that the hardest part growing up's not getting old. Just learn how the real world goes. I miss my old. I
for clear water. Clear water. Been knowing I need a hand to hold, but I'm afraid of how everything goes cold after a while. Been wondering if I ain't a friend to me. And how could you be? How could you be? Yeah, I've been searching for clear water. Clear water. Yeah, I need some clear water. Let it wash all over me. Let it wash all over me. So I keep walking with my nose up to the wind. Yeah, I keep believing there's a reason for the worst of this. Yeah, I keep hoping after all my blind attempts that I'll find some clear water. Clear water. Yeah, I need some clear water. Clear water. Let it wash all over me. Let it wash all over me. Let it wash all over me.
Ooh.